Welcome everybody to another video. Today we're checking out Sanguinius. Now I asked on the Discord which Primarch would people like to see next, and it was pretty much overwhelmingly Sanguinius. I think everyone said Sanguinius actually. So yeah, we're gonna check him out. I was gonna do Vulcan next. So Vulcan will come out tomorrow. This weekend I'm probably just gonna have 2 videos for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday because they're gonna be really damn long. They're all gonna be over half an hour. So I'm gonna leave only 2 videos a day because it's a lot for me to do. I don't have time to record all these videos. Also, you guys probably don't have time to watch all these videos. So yeah, starting back on Monday, we'll do 3 a day. I just don't have time right now to do all of these videos. But yeah, we're gonna get into Sanguinius lore. Without further ado, man, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new. All that good stuff. Join our Discord, and yeah, let's go. Italian Spartacus. Also, I poured a bowl of cereal and I have no milk. Amazing stuff. So now I'm going to eat this cereal dry. So yeah.
Sanguinius, the master of the 9th Legion, the great angel, the father of the Blood Angels, is one of the most beloved figures in the entirety of the 30th millennium.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. I can tell people love him.
Great Crusade had many heroes, and of all the Primarchs, Sanguinius stood for the Imperium that the Emperor was trying to create, a gleaming...
Right, and he sacrificed himself for the Emperor when Horus killed him. He went to confront Horus before the Emperor got there.
...figurehead on the prow of the glorious ship that was the secular truth of the time. Today we're going to talk about Sanguinius, my personally favorite Primarch next to Konrad Curze, and also go into some of the finer details of his upbringing. Unlike the other Primarchs, Sanguinius' life is...
Let me know who your favorite Primarch is. Right now, I've only covered, mainly, there've been bits of everyone, but I've only really covered Konrad Curze and Magnus. I think Magnus right now is my favorite.
Interesting in that there isn't a great deal of overwhelming strife or conflict. Much like, say, Horus or Guilliman, Sanguinius came into his own as a Primarch quite easily and was beloved by not only his sons, but by the people of the Imperium as a whole. Huge, majestic angel wings adorned the son of Baal's back, making him not only an angel in name, but in stature. We're also going to talk about how that love was ultimately not only Sanguinius' Achilles' heel, but also what is attributing to an issue that plagues the Blood Angels to this day, the Black Rage. So join me now as we talk about feathers, brotherly forearm handshakes, brother, bromances aplenty, angry demons, and of course, vampires. So as our story begins, smack dab in the Ultima Segmentum, what is now the Dark Imperium in the Baal system. And here we have the planet of Baal and its 2 moons, Baal Prime and Baal Secundus. Despite the Blood Angels' fortress monastery being on Baal Actual, Sanguinius actually landed on Baal Secundus in an aptly named location, Angel's Fall. And this eventually becomes a holy place for the Blood Angels and their successor chapters. There's a really awesome moment in the beginning of the Devastation of Baal book where all these different successor chapters are landing and doing a sort of pilgrimage to Angel's Fall. But Sanguinius was happened upon by a nomadic tribe of Baalites called the Folk of the Pureblood. And here they discover a baby, which is a disgusting creature from the warp enough as it is. Seriously guys, I hate babies like I fucking hate bees. But they find a seemingly perfect child, and with tiny little baby wings. So they essentially discover Cupid before he gets drunk and goes on a spur of assault and battery charges, also known as Valentine's Day, which is fucked up to begin with. But small point of contention here. In the earlier lore, it wasn't really certain whether or not he was touched by chaos. Did the Emperor intend for him to have wings or not? In the later lore of now, it appears that the wings are a result of chaos. And unfortunately, we don't really have a book that deals with the discovery of Sanguinius, so we don't really know how the Emperor of the Horus Heresy series, the book series, reacted to seeing wings. So, get back on track, but I wanted to kind of talk about that as a direct juxtaposition between the old lore and the new lore. But the blood, as the folk of the blood are called, was torn. Half wanted to kill the mutant, and the other praised it as a miracle. So in the end, Sanguinius was raised as one of their own, and much as the other Primarchs, he matured at a rapid rate. After 3 weeks, he was about the size of a full-on walking toddler.
You know what I need to know? I'm assuming Sanguinius, even as a baby, would he have been able to kill them? I mean, Konrad Curze The man crawled out of the ground as a baby and went and ate someone. So, you know, would they have been able to kill him, even if they wanted to?
Like a 3-4-year-old, slaying a fire scorpion with his bare hands. And then within a year, he appeared as a fully developed man, able to rent a car and vote. But what made Sanguinius unique, aside from his fucking wings, was that he could walk completely unprotected in the irradiated wastes of Balsecundus. No suit, nothing, not even blue scrubs on his wings. Now, the history of Sanguinius follows a lot of the ancient means of keeping story, right? Keeping history, words of mouth. So tales from his childhood are really, they're kind of riddled with sweeping hyperbole in the same way that we get with every other Primarch, but, you know, he smashes a path through a rock slide by karate chopping it. He quells animals with a stern glare, and he carries himself into the sky. So, I mean, really kind of on second thought, he is a Primarch, so everything really seems normal here. In fact, that was actually kind of watered down what I just described. So you get a sense, though, that this isn't some sort of written history in the same way that we get with some of the more developed civilizations that the Primarchs land upon. This is all very, not primordial, but again, very, very kind of early history, especially for these people. But over time, he grew to lead his tribe, guiding them across the wasteland. But with every Primarch comes a dark side. A band of feral ball-like mutants attacked his tribe, sending Sanguinius into a wild rage. Red-hot wrath poured over Sanguinius as a nimbus of light floated above his head as his blood rage overtook him, slaying over 100 mutants single-handedly. This is the I guess you could vestige of the red thirst that we eventually see his sons taking on. Now, aside from that, though, Sanguinius was entirely benevolent, becoming a capable leader, and as time pressed on, he rose to prominence, becoming the ruler of all of the blood, purifying the wastes of their mutant inhabitants. But in time, Sanguinius was worshipped as a god, but this renown also brought the eye of the Emperor as he searched for his wayward sons. Discovering Baal, the Emperor made his way to the Conclave of Blood, following a throng of people gathering in an amphitheater carved into Mount Seraph. And as he stood shoulder to shoulder with Baalites, his golden armor gleaming amongst the ragged brown tatters around him, Sanguinius gave a rousing speech at the head of the amphitheater, his words stirring the spirit and galvanizing the soul, giving hope, giving purpose, giving direction. His grand speech ended by soaring into the air, a titanic roar that was echoed by the blood. When the Emperor finally approached Sanguinius, the great angel immediately bowed to his knee in service of his father. And Sanguinius had the ability of foresight to see in the future, and he knew that this day would come, and he knew who his father was from that foresight, and he immediately recognized him as his liege. And the Emperor actually seemed pretty pleased with the society that Sanguinius had created. That isn't the same for most, if any, of the other Primarchs, to be totally honest here. Remember, Sanguinius is to embody all the new Imperium is to stand for, and I think that the Emperor, for the Emperor, this was the first page in the great book that would become the 9th Legion's conquests. And elevating the best of Sanguinius' warriors to Astartes, Sanguinius took his place at the head of the newly renamed 9th Legion, the Blood Angels. And Sanguinius went through one of those kind of Batman montages from the older films where it shows off his new armaments, including nipple armor. Blood Angels are the undisputed masters of nipple armor. Trust me, I've painted way too many to know they have got way too many prominent nipples. But his gold artificer armor is some of the most ornate armor of all the Primarchs, next to maybe Fulgrim himself. But one thing I used to have a problem with was the heart on Sanguinius' armor. I didn't really understand it. And when you're a kid into the grimdark of this world, it seems out of place. But he has this gigantic heart in the center of his armor to symbolize the fiery passion for the Imperium that the Emperor is trying to create. And atop the heart are 4 rubies, each with the blood drop of the Blood Angels, symbolizing the 4 planets that the Legion draws its recruits from. First, distant Terra, where the Legion got its original start. Then, Balsecundus, Baal Prime, and then the planet of Baal itself. And as Sanguinius joined the Crusade, he found an immediate kinship with a number of Primarchs, Leman Russ, Magnus, Bobby G, Rogel Dorn, Jagatai Khan, but chief amongst them was Horus. Their bond was very strong, and their
God damn it, Horus.
legions but a number of campaigns together. And we'll go back to that in just a second, but Sanguinius was a huge figurehead for not just the Crusade, but the Imperium as a whole. He was beloved by his fellow brothers, his sons, and any planet that was brought into compliance by his legion. I mean, he was lovingly called the Angel, but it did speak to a kind of a scary religious sect that was starting to grow as the Great Crusade went on. And you have to remember that the Crusade worked under a secular truth. There are no gods, demons, anything divine. All can be explained by science, math, and logic. Like, that is like drummed into you as you read the first 2, 3, 4 books of the Horus Heresy. Like when they first encounter demons, I think it's in False Gods or whatever the second book is, they encounter something reminiscent of demons. And they go, there's no demon. There's no such thing. It's probably just something from the warp or something like that. Even the warp in and of itself, they don't like peer into, because all that is aimed at denying power to the Chaos Gods. If there's an Imperium of Man, an Imperium of Man is the largest thing in the galaxy as far as a power, a superpower as it is, and none of them believe in gods or worshipping or anything like that, then chaos can only be so strong, you know. They're only powered by the nascent.
I just connected something, or maybe he didn't, and I think I did. But maybe that's where the Emperor wanted to steer away from religion to weaken the power of the warp, because obviously religion inspires, and some people fanaticism. Some people get really into it, and if you're all worshipping one thing, you know, certain feelings come out. People will be distasteful if you disagree with them, so it will power the warp.
Emotions of these sentient creatures rather than their direct devotion and their admiration and their worship, and that's where they get their true strength. So the Emperor knew this, and he wanted to completely remove this from the equation by creating this secular truth. And Sanguinius was always kind of quick to put these notions down, explaining that he was made in the Emperor's image, which I'd argue didn't really help his case, because then it kind of venerated the position of the Emperor is a god.
I was just made in the God's image by the God himself. I'm basically him, you know what I'm saying?
God. So, you know, kind of weird there. So, and Sanguinius himself, he didn't look like the Emperor. That was Lorgar. He wasn't some psychic colossus. That belonged to Magnus. He didn't know how to construct hundreds of worlds into one empire. That was Jaokim. He had that honor, but it is said that he is the best embodiment of all things of the Emperor into one whole, the best mix, as it were. For a long time, the Blood Angels were the personal...
He's the poor man's Emperor, is that what you're saying?
Honor guard of the Emperor, you know, kind of following along with him during the Crusade and the discovery of more of his wayward sons. And there's no doubt that Horus was the best choice for War Master, but I sometimes wonder how close Sanguinius and the Emperor were. I mean, the Great Angel embodied all that was the Imperium to be, and that had and he also had the temperament and wisdom to really be more than just a wartime leader. And I kind of have this weird theory in my head here that, and this is off the rail, guys, this is not about the history of Sanguinius, that Sanguinius maybe knew an inkling of the Emperor's plan, if not the entire divulgence, right? And the plan, of course, being to wean humanity off of the use of the warp. That's what the whole Webway project was for. And if you don't know anything about this, I do forget that sometimes people that are watching these videos have no prior knowledge of the 40K. So,
if you have no knowledge of 40K, brothers, you know what you should do? You should go to my Warhammer playlist and just watch every video from the top down, and then you go on a journey with me, and by the time you finish the playlist, you will know a lot more. And that's true. That's true. I feel like in the future, that's what people will do. I think that's a very, very nice, cool thing. But I still don't know much about Horus. I need to watch a video on Horus too, but who corrupted Horus? Was it a combination of all the Chaos Gods? Was it one? Was he just like, did he just lose his mind? I need to know that.
When the Emperor quits the Great Crusade, he goes back to the Imperial Palace to continue what's called the Webway Project, which is basically a means for the Imperium to utilize the Webway and no longer have to utilize the Warp. The Warp deals with the chaos. Yes. The Webway is constructed by the Old Ones and utilized by the Eldar. So you don't have to rely on the Warp and the Astronomicon and going into demon lands and basically having anything to do with demons if you're using a Webway. So that's what I think, that maybe Sanguinius had some sort of inkling of that. So Sanguinius' faith in the Emperor was rock solid, and I think that there was a sense of kindred spirit between the two as they kind of shared the same vision for a peaceful and united humanity. But regardless, as the Emperor abandoned the Great Crusade, leaving Horus in charge, there was that sinking feeling that invasively made its way through most of the Primarchs, poisoning half the legions and spawning the Horus heresy, with Horus at the helm. Now, we spoke about Horus and Sanguinius' close bond, and there might be no bond amongst the Primarchs closer than these two. I mean, I'd even argue that they probably would do the Primarch equivalent of sharing underwear, which I don't really know what that would be. Maybe trying each other's armor pieces on.
Don't share underwear with anybody, bro. What the fuck? I would never do that.
Which is just fucking disgusting. I mean, armor sockets are probably the rankest thing. Books talk about their armor plugins literally aching after weeks or months of being in extended campaigns with their armor on. Okay, now that I've vomited my own mouth, let's press on. So as I've said, they spent a number of campaigns alongside one another, the two brothers growing closer just as their legions did. And they were so close that the other Primarchs were often jealous of their bond. I sometimes wonder, if Sanguinius had been present during Davin, would Horus have fallen? And there are a lot of fever dreams while on Davin where Horus talks about his bonds to his brother and how Sanguinius should have been War Master. But either way, during a campaign on the world of Melchior, Horus witnessed Sanguinius doing the unthinkable, murdering one of his own Astartes. The Red Thirst, or what Sanguinius called the Flaw, had overwhelmed one of his men, devolving him into a blood-drinking monster whose sole purpose is draining their victims of blood. Their skin kind of turns pale and fangs elongate, and they truly take on the visage of vampires.
Right, 40k really does have everything, doesn't it? Vampires, werewolves, dude. We still need to watch, is it Lehman Russ? We still need to watch his video, but they have everything, man. They have everything.
The legionnaire that succumbed, Sanguinius personally slew, and Horus kept this secret close to his heart, guarding it from even the Emperor. Sanguinius was terrified that the Emperor would see this as another flawed legion and have them sanctioned, as, quote-unquote, he did the other two. And we get some hints in Fear to Tread during this exchange, Fear to Tread is the name of the book, during this exchange, about the two lost legions' kind of true fate. And this is huge. You know, the only people that know about the Flaw are Ascalion, the first Captain Raldoron, then the Master Apothecary back on Ball, and now Horus. This really helps solidify that strong...
I'm still intrigued if they're ever going to reveal who the lost Primarchs are. Like the two that haven't been found. Or the two, maybe they were found and, as he alluded to, they had too many flaws, or they had a fatal flaw and the Emperor just decided to off them. Like he did with the Thunder Warriors, you know?
Strong brotherly bond, which is then broken and thrown to the wind during the Horus Heresy. Once the heresy breaks out, but before it is widespread knowledge that Horus has fallen, he uses this secret against Sanguinius in a bid to open the Ninth Legion up to corruption from Khorne, a seemingly fitting patron, I would agree. And it was either that or destroy the Legion. And he knew that if the Blood Angels were allied against him, they would not win. Thus begins the Cygnus campaign, which was a kind of two-pronged demon attack against the Blood Angels. Horus sent the Ninth to the Cygnus cluster, which had become an entirely kind of demon-infested empire by a greater demon of Slaanesh known as Cryus the Perverse. And because, I mean, why would Slaanesh have a demonic name that didn't hint at nipple twisting? But upon reaching the system, the Blood Angels, Astropaths, and Navigators were killed by the initial psychic onslaught. And remember, at this point in history, no one had really dealt with demons, so they just assumed to be Xenos technology and no one really knew about. Some of the librarians, or the former librarians, were encountering kind of terrifying dreams and images of some sort of red angel, and some stuff just kind of enters the minds of a lot of the Blood Angels, Sanguinius included. So there's this weird kind of air of things that are not right. But as the Blood Angels push on into the system, they eventually came to the seat of the demon's power, Cygnus Prime. And here they fought through horde and horde and horde of demon and chaos cultists alike until the arrival of the biggest, most rock-hard, baddest badass, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson of the realm of Khorne's greater demons, Ka'Banda. The angel and the demon fought a titanic duel, crashing into one another as gleaming fiery sword met rusted blood-red axe. As Sanguinius gained the upper hand, the demon roared, lashing out with its twisted whip, ensnaring Sanguinius' leg and crushing them.
Ooh.
This entire duel is met with taunts to Sanguinius, kind of telling him that his brother had fallen, that he will learn to serve Khorne. And after wounding him, The demon turns about and swings his massive axe, cleaving through hundreds of legionnaires, killing them instantly. The psychic backlash of losing so many of his sons drives Sanguinius.
The demon killed hundreds. Did he just say hundreds of space marines? His legion with one swing of an axe. What kind of fucking axe is that? And how big is this fucking demon, dude? My man must be a fucking giant.
Into an insane coma, rippling out across the entire legion on the planet. The first vestiges of what will become the Black Rage descend upon all in the proximity. Reduced to a berserker, blood-drunk rage, the Blood Angels attack and tear their way through the massive cultists, even into each other if the opportunity presents itself. Sanguinius is eventually recovered, though, from the battlefield by Raldoron, and the remaining disbanded Librarius elements use their power to connect with Sanguinius' mind, pulling him out of his coma. And to spare some details that are maybe better appropriate for their own video, Sanguinius does one of those Superman supersonic leaps off the ground after he's pulled out of the coma, and descends upon the two greater demons, killing both in a one-on-one duel, banishing each one of them to the Immaterium.
Bye.
That's not the last we will hear of Ka'Banda. And this is a pretty scary moment, though. We get the beginning of the Black Rage, and we see the full effects of the Red Thirst, and it's a very somber moment of the Legion who abandons the system to make for Terra after receiving Rogel Dorn's distress call. And this distress call kind of sends the Blood Angels into a flurry here.
Bobby G!
Because this Red Thirst is now starting to pop up a lot more often. The psychic backlash of this event created some sort of like lasting ripple throughout the entirety of the Blood Angels, where the Red Thirst, like I said, is popping up, is a lot more prevalent. So, at the attempt to leave the Cygnus cluster, the Blood Angels found that they couldn't find the Astronomicon, the guiding light of the Emperor through the Empyrean. And eventually, they locked on to the strongest signal they could find, bringing them to Macragge. Now, the Ruin Storm, a huge warp storm born from the sundered soul and body of Tarek Torgadon and innumerable Space Marine gene seeds, tore the galaxy in half, blinding everyone from the guiding light of the Emperor. Macragge had gained a beacon of sorts in Pharos, an alien technology that resonated through the warp to the wayward legions. Arriving on Ultramar, Bobby G explained to Sanguinius the entirety of the Horus Heresy, and that the possibility of the Emperor being dead might actually be all too real. In a section that is really better explained in its entirety in the Bobby G video on Rabut Guilliman, Rabut Guilliman and Sanguinius set up Imperium Secundus, with Sanguinius as the Imperator Reginens, and the arriving Lionel Johnson as de facto War Master. Now, Conrad Kurz joins in, stowing away on the Invincible Reason, the flagship of Lionel Johnson, beginning a small civil war on Macragge. The Lion viciously hunts the cities of Macragge for his brother as he spreads for a lot of terror and dissent. And the culmination of this conflict, again, better detailed in Bobby G's video, is the eventual capture of Kurz, trial by triumvirate of all three of the Primarchs, and exile of Lion with a planned execution of Kurz. And again, I don't want to go into the details of each one of these aspects because they're better explained in their entirety. I try to do this so that anyone who's new to the hobby or new to this lore doesn't get too lost in the flurry of conflicting, I guess you could just say, storylines, because you really don't hear about this storyline until 2 or 3 books after the Imperium Secundus is created, so I'm trying to create some brevity here, so I apologize if that frustrates you guys, but...
Conrad, bro. Conrad decided to cheat, bro. He wanted to start a mini civil war, got his ass whooped. Why would you do a 1v3, man? I mean, he does want to die, I guess, so...
As the Lion is leaving the system, he has one of those, oh shit, how do we miss that kind of boxcar kid detective type moments, and uses the Pharos to teleport into the chamber where Kurz is to be executed, staying the execution before the blade falls. Lion tells his brothers that if Kurz is indeed awaiting his death at the hands of an assassin sent by the Emperor, then that means the Emperor is alive. You see, bat wings and angel wings share the same psychic precognition, and Sanguinius admits that the Lion is correct, and it's this moment where Sanguinius comes out of a haze of sorts, wherein he had tricked himself into believing that Imperium Secundus might bear a different path for him than the ultimate demise he saw for himself. Which brings us to the epic crescendo of my favorite Primarch. And we're just now getting to the Horus Heresy series, book series, climax upon
Poor guy.
The Siege of Terra, the Battle of Terra. And we're already starting to get some of the older details fleshed out. But this is the pivotal moment. Horus has besieged the throne world of the Imperium. He's set on all sides by enemies. Terra is defended by a handful of legions compared to the might arrayed against them. The Blood Angels, White Scars, and Imperial Fists stood against the 8 traitor legions. It is originally 9, but the Alpha Legion had kind of like a seemingly intended failed assault on Terra. So that's a weird thing too. We'll go into with the respective legion. But I've been kicking around the idea of doing the Siege of Terra as its own video. So let me know in the comments if you guys would be down for that. I already promised a Siege of the Fang, so I'll just add this to the list if you're interested. But as the Siege of Terra began, the Imperial battlements were packed with brothers standing shoulder to shoulder, reds, whites, and yellows, crisscrossed down the lines of the Imperial Palace. And Horus's invasion was swift and deadly. Cleaving deep into the palace, the Blood Angels fought with unrivaled valor. Outnumbered at every turn, heroes of each legion clashing against one another in duels of honor that echo far into the future. And the light of the great angel's sword cast down upon his sons as he single-handedly held the skies, destroying greater demons that would be the death of any lesser man. Even with the valiant defense of each legionnaire upon the battlements, the traitors pushed ever onward, deeper into the inner sanctum of the palace, before the very doors of the throne itself. Outside of the Eternity Gate, Sanguinius dueled with Kabanda yet again, the ancient bloodthirster thrashing the son of Baal against the steps of the throne room as he leapt to make his killing blow. Summoning the last of his strength, Sanguinius grappled the demon and rose up into the air, his mighty wings carrying both aloft. A crack like thunder rang out across the throne room as Sanguinius broke the demon's spine over his knee, before swinging him around and hurling him into the way of the Eternity Gate, slamming the gigantic doors shut. It was in this moment that Horus grew overconfident, in the same way you get far too cocky when you're playing Dark Souls with the last hit left on a boss, who then just one-shots you. But he wanted this...
I never played Dark Souls, but I've seen a few people play it, and I've heard it's really, really difficult. So if it's really, really difficult, I'm not playing it, because I get frustrated.
Conflict to drag on, to really savor the Emperor's defeat, to watch his father that abandoned him kneel before him. He then received word that the Space Wolves, Ultramarines, and Dark Angels would be translating into the system within a matter of hours. And this turned Horus's plan into a desperate maneuver to try and end things quickly. Lowering the psychic barriers and the void shields across the vengeful spirit, he dared the Emperor to come aboard. Now again, this has not been written yet, but none of this has. But Sanguinius knows he's going to his demise. His precognition has told him that he's to die at the hands of Horus, and he shares the same gift that his father shares. So I'd like to think that there is a sort of very solemn moment before they teleport aboard the War Master battle barge. He's been shoulder to shoulder with 2 of his closest brothers in Dorn and Khan. And imagine the 3 of them exchanging forearm handshakes, grabbing one another by the back of the neck and wishing each other luck. A parting for Sanguinius, a genuine wish for the other 2. They are not aware that he knows, nor are they aware that he is going to die up there. And the Emperor has to see this coming too, but I don't expect any kind of outward affection. I just expect him, moments before teleporting, putting his hand on Sanguinius' shoulder and nodding to him. And we'll see as the books come out, Black Library, I'm ready, fucking hire me.
Wait, so Sanguinius and the Emperor teleported together up there?
But many of us 40k fans know this story well, but there are not many details really. Upon teleporting aboard the Vengeful Spirit, Sanguinius is separated from the group, and through the machinations of chaos, encounters Horus first before everyone else. And Horus asks for his hand in holy chaostimony one more time, but Sanguinius refuses. Already weak and wounded from fighting Kabanda, he knows what he must do. Duty calls for it as Horus's rage drives him toward attacking. Sanguinius leaps to meet his closest and favorite brother. When the Emperor finally makes his way to Horus's chamber, the broken and bloody corpse of Sanguinius lies at his feet. Horus, at this point, is roided out with 4 types of weapons-grade Russian chaos steroids and just barely loses.
Second moment of silence for Sanguinius. Okay, moment of silence completed. Yeah, the other day I asked, was Horus that much stronger than him? But then I forgot Horus would have had chaos upgrades. And then I didn't know that Sanguinius had to fight that demon guy and was pretty much fucked over already. So, maybe if he wasn't already kind of beat the fuck up And maybe if he didn't get separated, he wouldn't have died.
His duel against the Emperor. And the Emperor not only killing Horus, but destroying his soul outright, leaving himself gravely wounded. And there's a very interesting moment in that duel. The Emperor is still trying to redeem Horus all throughout the entirety of the duel, almost to the point where he lets himself get killed.
Exactly. Exactly. You can't redeem Horus, bro. Like, is the reason that he died, or, well, he didn't die, did he? He's basically dead, but, you know, his psychic ability's still there. Is the reason that he almost died because he tried to redeem Horus? Because he kept trying to redeem Horus, and as a result, Horus was getting free hits? Or because he had to use all the power to throw the psychic bolt at Horus? Also, the fact that he destroyed Horus's soul, does that mean Horus could never be revived? But could hypothetically Sanguinius be like revived or like come back as someone else because his soul wasn't destroyed? Maybe it's just roaming around in the warp and he can rebirth him, you know?
This grave wound has befallen the Emperor, and he's kind of sitting there, you know, head down, ready to receive the killing blow. And some Imperial guardsman, as the story goes, charges Horus, and Horus just kills him quickly and laughs about it, like so sadistically. And that kind of triggers the Emperor to say, all right, you know what? No, he cannot be saved. It's time to go. But again, as the story goes, the Emperor would not have been able to kill Horus if it were not for the crack in the armor that Sanguinius' sword created. Yeah. One of the recent rumors, or I guess the kind of speculation, the 40k lore gods have kind of spoken amongst themselves on this one, that it's kind of been floating around that what if that crack was maybe emotional, or the character armor of Horus, which I really enjoy the notion of. I enjoy the notion that it doesn't need to be a physical rent in his armor so much as an actual crack, like a moment where it's like, how could you do this, Horus? You were the chosen one. I have the high ground, like that kind of bullshit.
Whoa, either way, with the Star Wars references, man. That was so sad when that happened, man. I remember watching that episode 3 of Star Wars 2, bro. I remember the day I got it, the DVD, man. I remember when it came out, I was so excited to go home and watch it. I put it in, I watched like half of it, and then I had to go somewhere and I didn't watch the other half. Then I watched the other half and I just see Anakin get chopped in like 4 pieces by Obi-Wan. Oh man, those were the days, bro. Those were the days.
Greatest Primarch, as proclaimed by the Blood Angels, passes into antiquity, but he leaves a lasting impression upon his progeny that is far more sinister than his actual legacy. The Black Rage is now blown out across the Legion. At random times, a Blood Angel might fall victim to the Red Thirst, sure, but now the psychic imprint of their liege's death is deeply ingrained into the gene seed of every Blood Angel, and every Blood Angel to come. Really what happens is, the Blood Angels are so depleted from the Siege of Terra that they don't have their gene seed reserves. They get destroyed. So they have to create more from existing Blood Angels, which have all been dealt the blow of the Black Rage. Just the same way as the precursor to the Black Rage attacks them on Cygnus Prime, it's everyone in proximity. Same things happen here, but it only infects the ones that are in the proximity, and of course, they're the only gene seeds that are left. But the Black Rage can trigger on the quote-unquote eve of battle, sending the Blood Angel just deep into the past, consumed in the fervent anger of their avenging Primarch during his final hours of the Siege of Terra. And no matter how you cut it, the end of the Horus Heresy changed the Imperium, with Bobby G constructing the Codex Astartes and dividing the legions into chapters and successor chapters of the Second Founding. Led by the last remaining member of the Sanguinary Guard, Escalion became the new chapter master of the Blood Angels, with successor chapters such as the Flesh Terrors, created from the heroes and leaders of the original Legion. Captain Nasir Amit, the original Flesh Terror, that's his actual title, becomes the chapter master of his, namesake, the Flesh Terrors. And the Blood Angels leave behind a massive legacy and continue to carve their destiny as the flaw of the Red Thirst and Black Rage plagues the former Ninth Legion. But the future is theirs to really decide, and this is the future born from the death of their Primarch Sanguinius. It's a pretty well-known fact amongst the 40k culture, especially Imperial players, that there's a lot of veneration given towards Sanguinius. I mean, he's one of the few very well-written characters with a good arc and incredible kind of sense of duty without just being an over-the-top like, I can defeat it, yes! And there's a certain themes that kind of preclude this whole thing, right? Like, of course, you can see Lucifer and Horus as a parallel, Emperor and God and Jesus Christ in Sanguinius. That's like the kind of the big thing, right? Like he quote unquote dies for our sins. Like that kind of over the top kind of connection is made there. But as the Imperium falls in line with the imperial cult and begins to worship the emperor, so do they worship Sanguinius as a saint, celebrating him in a day called the Sanguinala. And overall, Sanguinius is a badass that the Imperium has not seen and probably will never see again. A paragon of duty, a primarch with a pure soul, and the true embodiment of all of the facets of the emperor. Also, a ferocious combatant. I mean, shit guys, this guy went toe-to-toe with demon primarch Angron on the battlements of the Imperial Palace. I cannot wait until that is fleshed out more, because Sanguinius is one of maybe 4 primarchs to be able to fight Angron without dying, and this is him in his demon primarch form, so holy shit. He's cut from the same cloth, but learning to temper his fury better than Angron clearly did. I mean, one could even argue that Angron had Angron been cast to Baal and Sanguinius to New Syria, their roles might have been sort of reversed, which is an interesting subject that might be worth delving into on its own. That brings us to the end of our tale of Sanguinius, and I'm still waiting to hear about some of the bigger stories, such as when the Blood Angels allied with Zarek, the silent king of the Necrons, to fight off Tyranids from High Fleet Behemoth. I
want to hear about that. Also, I would like to hear about that.
When Dante meets Zarek, the silent king, in the 40th millennium, or 41st millennium, he says that he being Zarek, says that he met Sanguinius and had a great fondness for him. And hell, the Necron Lord even wears a Sanguinius death mask. That should tell you how revered this Primarch was. And Zarek hates all forms of life. Yet Sanguinius wasn't too bad of a guy. Whoa, who'd have thought? On a quick little side tangent, Zarek was so pissed off with everything going on, the Milky Way and the Catan and the Necrons and the Old Ones and the War in Heaven, that he goes to leave the Milky Way galaxy into the galactic void, and all he finds in the galactic void are the Tyranids. And that might be one of the scariest things I've read in Warhammer lore, because as I've explained, I have a deep fear of like cosmic sea depths where you can't.
That's fucked up, dude. That's fucked up. That would suck if all you see is Tyranids, dude.
Can't see what the fuck is going on. Galactic void, that kind of fills that deep fear. Like, holy crap, imagine going out there, like, oh, we finally sent a probe beyond the Milky Way, and what's out there? Fucking Tyranids, holy crap. Either way, guys, thanks so much for watching here today. Let me know in the comments section who you would like to see for our next Primarch.
I would like to see Fulgrim, you know what I mean? But I don't think he's done Fulgrim yet. Lehman Russ. Fuck Lehman Russ. What a piece of shit. No, I'm kidding. Alright, that is the end of this video, man. The end of Sanguinius. I kind of feel bad for him. He seemed like the best Primarch in terms of he was almost the Emperor in terms of all his abilities and stuff. He didn't really go into too much detail about his upbringing and stuff. He seemed to be a very honourable man. I don't know if he could technically be revived. I don't know if that's a thing. If you could revive Primarchs, obviously you can't revive Horus because his soul was destroyed. But yeah, man, you guys let me know on that, man. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also, you can join us on Discord where the discussion continues. But until next time, I'll see you all later.